how do you view the use of AI either to create or help create content? And then what tool have you either used or do you use?
I'll try to keep it short because I have strong opinions on this one, and I go very much against the industry. Someone once told me recently there was a bunch of AI produced content that came out about their subject, and she said, "Wow, this AI content is amazing, and I would never want to read it." Which to me, I feel like sums up the use of AI. I continue to think AI can be, in this context, can be really helpful for generating ideas, for coming up with outlines, and, almost from a brainstorm perspective. Personally, I think marketers in general have gone way over the deep end, jumped the shark, whatever you want to say, to thinking that AI is a magic bullet when it comes to eat. And I just don't think it is, because I think usually what's produced trends more on the side of overly optimized junk versus humanized, helpful, interesting content. A lot more we could say there, but there's some great tools to help, absolutely, and some amazing tools. But in general, I think an over-reliance on AI can produce a bunch of stuff. I don't know that it's going to necessarily, in a lot of cases, get you exactly what you want out of human interaction with people.
What tools have you used in your research to have your opinion on AI? Can you name a few?
Yeah, Surfer SEO is like a great optimization platform. Of course, ChatGPT, and there's a number of like prompt generators that can help you get what you want a little more directly there. Some of the standard Google tools are starting to incorporate a little bit of AI. It's funny you asked about Google My Business. Actually, there was an AI prompt this morning to, there's a widget in there now to help you optimize your business subscription. So it's such a, as you mentioned, it's such a fast and evolving thing that, anyone who says they're an expert on it is lying, because nobody is. But, those are some of the tools that are out there. And there's a bunch of different content tools that can be used right now to generate some of this. I know you've used a lot more of them than I have probably at this point. So
yeah, I try to explore a tool a day if I can. And I've found, even for basic use cases, about a 30% success rate at does the tool deliver on what it promised when I opened, when I logged in. Mm-hmm. So, because you got to log in and you do a 7-day trial, whatever, and about 30% of the time it'll do what it is. But as a technologist, I'll circle back on some of these and watch them evolve. But I do have my I do interact with AI quite a bit, and there are definite pros and cons to it all, and that's an entirely different conversation that we could have and go down there. So, when I'm thinking about what type of content to produce, how might I go about planning out my content in a way that would support EAT when it's published and promoted onto the internet?
I have a stupid little test. I call it a test. I don't know if it's a test. It's a personal benchmark. I call it the U test, right? And or the me test, we could say. I always just like to ask the question, would you be interested in reading or interacting with the content you have planned that you're going to come out to say with, or to personalize it? Would I be interested in the content that I might be planning or come out with? And surprisingly, I think a lot of the times, if you ask that genuinely, the answer is no. Like, I think a lot of brands produce stuff, and I ask them, like, well, would you want to read this? And they say, well, no. So, well, why would your audience, right? Who cares? So I think that's where it starts, is you have to have an honest conversation with yourself, or pull in other people outside of the sphere of maybe your marketing group to say, is this something you'd actually care about? Does this matter? Is this content you want to engage with? If the answer is yes, then I think you've really got something there. So that's one place I like to start. From there, you have to ask yourself, is what I'm producing actually useful and helpful to people? Like we talked about earlier, is this something that is adding something to the world in a unique way, in a helpful way? One specific example that I've seen wild success with is the concept of original research, or bringing original data to the table. It can be as complicated as running a whole study and getting results from it. But it can also be as simple as just reporting back on some of the things that you're doing, whether it's a case study or just internal examples, client examples, whatever. All those sort of concrete examples that's based on a real life scenario is now you're adding original research or original thought, as opposed to just restating something that anyone out there on the internet can say.
That's a great point. Let me elaborate on it just a little bit and get your feedback on this. So, using that example, and I'm gonna use the word additive. So let's say that there is a whole bunch of knowledge in the search results. If I were to think about the topic and put it in Google search, I'm either going to get a lot of really good results, or I'm going to realize that no one's really answered the question. It seems like that through original research or through some of the topics is that it might be an interesting strategy to be additive and to answer questions or topics that haven't really been addressed, as opposed to, trying to sneak your way into the top 10 of something that already is pretty saturated. Does that sound like a good strategy?
Yeah, it's probably been, it's essentially what you're describing is one of the most effective strategies I've seen in the past 5 years with SEO. So to use an example, we worked with a third-party PR agency, actually, who had a bunch of press contacts. And so it was a collaborative effort where we were able to generate a piece of original research. We were able to conduct a study, really hone in on the right audience, generate some really fascinating results. We had all this data. Then we created what we called a content asset, which is a long-form, in-depth piece of content that had that original data. It's got great graphs and imagery and insights and a summary. In the example we did it back in 2020. It was about the culture of Americans working from home. It's such a buzzworthy thing at the moment. There wasn't much information about what was going on. So we were able to put together this piece of content, then leverage the PR agency to go out and reach out to all these different press contacts. And the thing ended up getting featured in over 300 different publications on the internet, almost all of them in turn linking back to the content asset on our site. But it was that combination of like, what's something people are interested in? What's some original data we can bring to the equation? And then how do we figure out a way to promote that, get it out online in front of other people that might be interested in it? And it's kind of a 1 + 1 + 1 = 5 scenario. And it absolutely took off. And that's just one example of others similars that we've done that is some of the most effective techniques I think you can be doing with content right now.